Glad I'm covered up, man. All right, well, I'm talking about something a little different. I'm talking about working with your kids. In the beginning, God worked to make the earth. He worked for 7 days to make this amazing place that we live in and to make us. And on the seventh day, he rested. And then God made Adam and Eve, and he gave them the job of tending to or working in the Garden of Eden. You guys have a little pamphlet of verses, and you can see the first one says, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it." The Bible has so many verses on how important it is to work. I want to read the ones that I have bolded on here. So this is Proverbs 6 through 8. And I got all these verses from this book. Connie mentioned it, the Proverbs for Parenting. I just they use the King James Version, so I put them in the NASB for us. But this is a very good topical book on different subjects that you can refer to for parenting. Okay, so Proverbs 6 through 8, it says, "Go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which, having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest." The next one is Proverbs 10:5. "He who gathers in summer is a son who acts wisely, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who acts shamefully." And then Proverbs 12:14. "A man will be satisfied with the good fruit. A man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his words, and the deeds of a man's hands will return to him." And the next one is Proverbs 14:23. "In all labor there is profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." Proverbs 20:11. "It is by his deeds that a lad distinguishes himself, if his conduct is pure and right." These verses are so simple, but they say so much, and there's so many of them. And the idea is that, we're not to be lazy, that we are to be hard workers. We are to prepare for what we know is coming, like the ant, doesn't just lay around all summer, but all summer the ant is working to gather food for the winter. And I love that one, that the last one, "It is by his deeds that a lad distinguishes himself, if his conduct is pure and right." And even our children, they're known by their deeds. What is their character like? Are they hard workers? And it's something to keep in mind. It is important to teach our children from a young age to work, to contribute, and to serve. Even a small child can have tasks and find joy in working. When Sean and I, before we had any children, we went to Africa, and we were amazed by the children there. There was these little kids, and maybe they were 5 or 6 years old, and they would have their baby brother or sister strapped to their back, and they'd be carrying them around, and they would take care of them, and they'd take them off and, do whatever they needed, and then they'd strap them back on their back, and we would have these church meetings for hours, and these little kids would just sit there, and they would be perfectly still the whole time. And that made such an impact upon me, because I was like, wow. I'm sure part of it was that here's this new group from another country coming to visit, but it was obvious that this was really instilled in them. They could sit for long periods of time. They were contributing, they were helping. And I saw that it was possible that maybe we don't have high enough expectations for our children or expect enough. And so that really impacted me in my raising of my children to have higher standards. I believe that as a parent, it is one of our most important jobs to train our children to work hard and to work with joy. In Colossians 3:23, it says, "Whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord rather than for men." I think our children learn from our own attitudes towards work. If they see mom or dad grumbling about their tasks with a sour attitude, they will learn from this. if they see mom or dad doing their daily chores with enthusiasm, joy, and concern for a job well done, they will learn from this also. My sister and I were kind of talking, and we're like, where did we get our attitude about work? And I think our dad was our prime example. I mean, he works. He knows how to work. You know, he can work all day long, and he loves working with the earth. You know, he's a groundskeeper for a college, and so, you know, he loves planting and, you know, doing physical labor, and he's a perfectionist. I have to laugh because I always think about when we first bought our house and we're painting our house, and, you know, Vince is a painter, and Vince is painting along with us, and then there's my dad, like, touching up, you know, like, he wants it done right, and he wants it done really well, and, you know, he will go over your work, but he really taught us how to work hard, you finish the task, and you do it well. So Sean and I, you know, we've talked a lot about how, you know, it's like when you have kids, you talk, how do we want to raise our children? You know, you evaluate your parents. What did they do right? What did they do wrong? You know, how do you want to be? And work for us was really important, that we would try to incorporate our children into our daily tasks, whatever we're doing, and have them work alongside us. If there's a work day at the church, or if we're going to do a work day at somebody's house, we don't try to find some place for them to go. They're coming along with us, and they're doing it with us. One time we had a work day here at the church, and you know, the boys loved it. They were right in here with us doing stuff, and there was a huge pile of mulch that we were going to spread, and it was in the parking lot. They were literally swimming in the mulch. I've never seen them so dirty. And they had a blast, and Noah said to me that day, I wish every day was a work day. You know, and like that, what it did for my heart, I was like, oh, you know, I hope he always feels that way. I know he won't, but like, you know, that, I mean, he had purpose. He was satisfied with the job that he did. You know, we were all working together. They were part of what the adults were doing, and they had so much joy. Do you guys remember when we were going to have a playground in the field out here, and everything had been laid out, and then it didn't get approved, and we had to get rid of all that, what was it, the ground-up tires? Well, one of the summers that we lived here, we saw that there was just a big hole back there, and there were still the railroad ties that were left over from this playground that never happened. And Sean decided that it was going to be our summer project to fill in the hole. And so every Saturday, every Sunday, he and the boys would go out with wheelbarrows and fill them up with dirt. And the boys had their little wheelbarrows, and they would do it, and they started filling in this massive hole in the yard over there. And I remember, you know, some of the guys from the church, I don't remember who it was, they'd put their hands in their pockets, and they'd be like, you know, you could rent a machine to do that in just a few hours. And you know, you could have, but the point is that all summer long, the boys worked. They worked with their dad, and they filled in that hole back there. And it took all summer, countless wheelbarrowfuls of dirt and digging, and they loved it. And at the end of the summer, we planted the grass seed, and that was like victory. You know, it was, and like now we go back there and we're like, look, you can't even tell it was there. You know, it's like such a sense of just satisfaction. And the great thing is they didn't give up. You know, it was hard. It took a lot of effort. They sweated out there. It was hot. But we finished it, and that was our goal. You know, we're going to do this. It's going to be hard. We're going to enjoy it, though, and we're going to finish it up. Another thing was Vince and we made sauce recently. And we had the boys come with us, and they helped us pick the tomatoes, and they helped us wash the tomatoes, and they helped us cut the tomatoes. And they would start complaining, you know, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I want to go watch something. And, you know, and even like at one point, Daniel nicked his little finger, and he was like, I'm done. I need a Band-Aid, you know. And I'm like, well, I'll get you a Band-Aid, but you're going to finish the task. You know, you have to finish. This is our job. This is what we're doing. And they did. And it was such, you know, it took longer because Whenever you have kids with you, it takes longer. But we did it, and here, we did like 150 jars of sauce or something, and they were part of the whole process. And that's something that they're going to remember. So I think it's important to incorporate them at any age, whatever age your children are, into whatever is going on, to contribute to the family, to serve, and like was mentioned before, come over to the church and do stuff in your home. They may balk and complain, but in the end, they love finishing a job and doing it well. And I'm a big believer in providing the right tools for them. Like I have the boys, we have a chore chart. Everybody in the family, except for Wesley, he's too young, has jobs that they do. And it was too awkward for the boys to use a big broom, so I got them this because that makes it easier and they enjoy doing the task better. And the boys have these little cleaning buckets. This is what we're doing. We're going to wash the windows or whatever, and they have their stuff, and they love that. It's like those are their tools for the job. I think it's also important to teach them the value of money and that it takes mom and dad a lot of hard work to provide for the family. In our house, there is no Santa Claus or Tooth Fairy. I say, I'm Santa Claus. Mommy and daddy worked really hard to earn the money and to provide for you, and that's where the credit goes. And ultimately to God, the reason we have these things is because God is so generous and so kind to us. And the boys have responsibilities, but if they want to earn something or to buy something, they have to earn it. They can do small chores around the house or whatever. I think if you teach your children how to work and how to work hard, they're going to be successful in so many aspects of life. Teach them to work hard in their relationship with God. It does not come easily. In school, same thing. With their jobs further on, the younger we start with them, it'll just carry on for the rest of their life. And I'm sure we have examples of people that we know where children that don't work hard or are lazy or can't finish a task, and that's going to carry on with them for the rest of their life also. It takes a lot of effort to help our children to finish their tasks, to work through their emotional tantrums or whatever it is. But in the end, it is so worth it. So I think whatever age your children are in your house, they should be helping out. That should be a basic thing. Whether you have little kids and they pick out their own clothes, or you have older teens and they have specific jobs, that they need to do them, that you use your parental authority. So my encouragement to you is to be good examples to your children of working hard, of finishing your tasks and doing it with joy. Look for ways that they can work alongside you and jobs that they can do on their own. I think we need to have high expectations for them and help them if they are struggling. You don't want to just say, all right, do this, and then they're having a hard time, and you're like, well, you just need to finish it. It's like, all right, well, let me help you. Like, we can do it together, and look, you did a good job. You finished it. Don't worry if things take longer to get done, because they always will when you have them helping you. But what they're learning in the process is invaluable. I just wanted to read Proverbs 22:6. And we probably all know this, but I think it takes a lot of intentional thinking to help your children to be hard workers. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. If you teach your children to work and to work hard and to do it with joy, this is something that it's so much harder to learn later on in life. But if it's kind of a natural progression throughout childhood until when they're older, they won't even think about it. I was talking to somebody came to visit last night, Dan Wall, you may know him. And I said, Dan, how did your dad, how did he teach you how to work? And he's like, well, his dad taught him that it's just ingrained, that like you're going to be defined by how, you work, and that it's a part of his character. Like he wants to be known as a hard worker. And it meant so much to him. I thought it was interesting, because he was really passionate about that subject. And, here he is, a young man, and he's got it in him. His dad really taught him how to work, and he feels, he's a good worker now, and it doesn't take him a lot of effort. It's part of his character. So thank you so much. Yeah.
That thing we went through trying to figure out whether to pay Noah or not pay him.
Yeah.
Explain that thought process.
So we had, Noah, he wanted stuff. And always. And so we figured out that, he has, responsibilities. You have things that you do in our home because you live here. And this is expected. Everybody contributes. This is your job. But then, and I have, a list of things that every day you're going to do these things, and that's your responsibility. But then if you want to earn, some extra money, he was weeding at the church. And, a great thing was Mike and Jen went away, and the boys took care of the cats and watered the plants. And they loved that, and they got $1 a day. And it was like, wow, Noah was counting up, it's going to take me this many days to have this much money, and, we talked about tithing, and so I think it's important to define, like my parents, they never just gave us money, and so because of that, we always had jobs. I babysat, we would we developed a business when we were teenagers, and we took care, when it snowed, we did the snowblower and shoveling, and that was great for us. We knew that if we wanted something, we had to earn it. It wasn't going to be handed to us.
I think that we live in a society where children, the reason the big difference between here and Africa is they didn't have 50 toys to play with, and that their whole thing in life was to play. Our kids are so many of the kids in the United States, what they do with their free time is they play. What they do with their free time in Africa is they work.
Yeah.
And that's really the way it used to be here too. If you're brought up on a farm, you're a kid, you work. And what has happened of this is the ramification of this, we have a whole generation of people that don't know how to work. We have adults that don't know how to work. I can't tell you how many times, like Jim, when we've done construction, Tom, I've been with men, full-grown men, that don't have a clue on how to work. They don't, and it's not only doing things, it's doing things efficiently. It's doing things the right way. It's finishing the job. These are all the things that you teach the child. You don't just say, here, Noah, go do this over there. You go with them over there and you teach them how to do it the right way. And learning how to work, again, we think that this is just something that comes by osmosis. It doesn't. You have to be taught it. Some people do get it. Her dad probably did. He's a pain to work with because he's so meticulous.
Yeah, he is. But it's going to be right.
Yes. There's no doubt about it. He did our lawn out here. That's why our lawn is so wonderful. He did all the landscaping. And John did the landscaping in front of the thing. The reason that John was so proficient at that is because his dad taught him to love to work. So my point is that kids can, I think innately they love to, I think we as humans love to accomplish things. And work is a good thing to accomplish. When the boys are playing with building blocks and stuff, they want to build something, so I think it comes to them naturally. I remember, and like you said too, with Micah was helping us. We had a truckload of dirt that I was filling in a hole in the backyard, and I think Micah was like 3 or 4, and he's up in the truck there, and he's sweating, he's got dirt all over him, and he's helping unload the thing with Zach. What a pain he was. He was in the way. We're trying to unload the truck. He's standing on the top of the pile of dirt, but he's got his little shovel, and he's helping. We could have got that job done at least half as fast without his help. It was twice as fast without his help. But that's, how valuable is that? He's got the heart to work. You really want to encourage that.
And after he worked for hours, he said, Grandpa, can I have a break now?
He did work like a dog.
He was waiting,
All right, any other comments on this work thing?
I was talking to a manager of Starbucks. He's a regional manager. And actually, I had a complaint for him, and I said, I think you need to retrain some of your employees because of the way they treated the customer. And he was telling me that it's very difficult to find young people who have a good work ethic. That it is increasingly difficult to just find that work ethic in anyone that's young. And I think part of it is that children are not taught to work. There's so many after-school activities, and they're running here and there and doing this. And I've talked to parents before. Well, have you, given your children chores? Well, they don't have time for chores. I'd like to, but they don't have time. I have to take them here and there. And I was in that book I had referenced last night by John Roseman. He had a great statement. He said, if the sum of the child's contribution is being in his room playing video games when he's at home, and then you're saying it's time to go, let me drive you where you need to go, said consumption without contribution equals a sense of entitlement.
Ooh, very good.
Isn't that good?
He said,
And that's what we have, is a society full of people that have a sense of entitlement.
And it's consumption without contribution equals a sense of entitlement. That they get everything for nothing. Like Ruth is saying, I'm not going to have my boys grow up that way. They're going to learn to work for what they have. And of course they would, because they're Vince's grandchildren. But that's where it comes from. You don't learn at home. Everything is to be given to you. And then you get in the workplace and you treat your employer with disrespect, and you expect things to be given to you, and you expect to show up, and that's enough.
We had a young couple at our house recently, and they have not developed a work ethic. They've been consumers. And my dad had given Noah a little backpack leaf blower. So Noah's out there, and he's blowing the leaves, and he's having a blast, and we're raking and everything. And this couple saw the leaf blower, and they're like, can we try that? They were out there for hours. I mean, they had a blast, and afterwards they said, I feel so productive, like this is great. I mean, they were like high on the feeling of being productive, and finishing. They made the biggest leaf pile. Every leaf was in that pile, and they felt so good. Something they had not felt in years, because, just that consumer, like that sense of entitlement, it was amazing to see. It's like an innate, satisfying desire. Like it feels good to do something well and to produce something. And they felt it.
Well, Ruth, on that vein, I think, the opposite. That if, the parents who either they don't have patience or they haven't thought it through, or for whatever reason, but I think it's so detrimental to a child at any age, but especially if they're younger, because they're more, impressionable, and you want to set the standard as early as you can, is for them to come and want to volunteer and say, oh, Mommy or Daddy, can I help with this? And the parent says, no, and right away they don't even think about it, and it's like either because, oh, I could get it done faster, or I could get it done better, or, what the child is, has the heart, the willingness to want to learn, they see you and they want to help or contribute, and the parent says no for whatever reason. And I
Crushing
think
their spirit.
yeah, and you crush their spirit, but I think, in this age that we live in, where everything is so accelerated and everything is at, spiraling at such a traumatic pace, and we have this instant gratification with drive-up windows and, instant messages and texting and all this stuff, we're racing at such a hard pace. But when you're raising children, I think the thing that I always have to bring to mind is, you have to put the time into it. For anything to be the best and for anything to be of any value, you really need to take the time with it. And I get the same result when you have a child and you teach them something. It's like they're so much more willing, and little bit by bit, you are building in them, you're exhorting them to want to serve. You're exhorting them with that, confidence building where, oh yeah, I can be a good worker, and they might have to stumble a little bit, but then you work through that and say, well, that's going to get you, you're going to learn from that, you're going to get better. And, I just see that so often in these kids get to be teenagers and then they expect everything to be handed to them.
When our kids were growing up, I have a very big driveway. My house used to be like the church, so that they made an exceptionally big driveway so the cars could park in there. And, when it snowed, we all went out and shoveled. And, it was a lot, it was a lot. I remember Sean saying to me, of course, Sean was always the one, right? He says to me, well, Dad, why don't you get a snowblower? And so I said to him, come on over here for a minute. I had him go over to the car. I said, hey, blow on that snow. You're my snowblower. Get back out here. And as soon as they moved out, I do have a snowblower. As soon as there's no way in the world I can do that whole thing by myself. I have a snowblower now. But during the year, I purposely did not want a snowblower. I wanted them to do the work and breaking the leaves. It'd be so much easier to do it without their help. But if they're going to learn how to work, you have to teach them how to work. And it's so much easier to clean the house without their assistance. But if they're going to learn to work, this is the point. We're trying to train them. And you train them if you can train your child to work. Now, I know we think we don't have the time for this stuff. Well, then you need to reevaluate your life. What did you have kids for? They're here. If you don't teach them to work, they're going to go into adult life and they're not going to be able to work, and they're going to do the thing that Connie said. There's going to be this sense of entitlement. Most of the kids today, I don't know about most, many kids today are trained to be vegetables as adults. They're spending their time on video games, they're spending their time watching TV, they're spending their Carrie told me this thing yesterday. She said that Carrie teaches second grade, or she's a music teacher, and she was preparing for probably have a share us on Sunday. She was preparing for the kids for a concert that's coming up. And the first class that she has, these kids were just listless, they just weren't into it. And she couldn't figure out, she couldn't get them going, and the concert was getting close. She finally said to them, well, children, why is this? You're not into it. You're always so, what's wrong? And one of the kids said, well, maybe it's because we're tired. And the long and short of the story was she found out that the kid was watching TV the night before. And then the other little boy said, well, what I do is so that I can fall asleep, I watch the news, and it's boring, and I fall asleep. And then she did a survey. 75% of the second graders have TVs in their bedrooms.
Oh.
So they're staying up watching TV. What kind of TV is on at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night
It's not
for an
good.
8-year-old or a 9-year-old?
Nothing
It's
good.
crazy.
Just the commercials alone.
Yeah, it's just insane. And that's what our kids' lives and their time are spent watching TV, video games, and all the rest. So it's no wonder that they're going to go into adult life and be totally unproductive. So make adjustments so that you can train your children to work. All right, thank you, Ruth.